Again, good evening or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Special Call Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, 2026, and it is now 5:21 p.m. We have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross? Here. Councilwoman Konski? Here. Councilman Cannibal? Here. Councilman Fletcher?
Here.
Councilwoman Avila? Here. Vice Mayor Bailey? Here. Mayor Losner?
Here. All right, we have for discussion item tab 1, agenda item 3A, car number 4877. For discussion purposes, a purchase offer for the City of Homestead mitigation property. Mr. Manager, you or the attorney going to lead off on this presentation or conversation?
Let me quickly thank Mayor and Council. This is our first meeting of the year. Thank you all for the opportunity to serve, and for the rest of the staff, thank you and congratulations for a successful 2025. The item before you tonight is a letter of intent that we received from Blue Nest Development, LLC. I believe Mr. Jason Bass is in the audience. I saw him walking. It was signed by him. He proposes a purchase price of $50 million payable in cash at closing with an inspection and due diligence period of 9 months for a certain city property located on the east side of the city, comprising approximately 530 acres, which is inclusive of an area that had previously been granted a right of first refusal to VSGS. This is a property that is commonly called the mitigation property. With that, I'm asking Mr. City Attorney to provide additional comments in view of the special nature of the property and what needs to be done.
So I believe, as most of you are aware, the property is encumbered, at least large portions of it, by conservation easements. And so it's one of the complicating factors. We haven't had direct conversations with the proposer, but those would ultimately need to be removed to proceed with any development on the property. At this point, I think what staff is looking for is direction as to whether there's interest in disposing of the property. If there is there due diligence that you would like staff to do so that you can make an informed decision about the proposal? And then from there, we can discuss process, because an additional complicating factor to the proposal is for a portion, not all, but a portion of the property, the VSGS group who's constructing the soccer stadium has paid for a right to match and that right lasts for 10 years. So at this point, I think what the manager and myself would be looking for is direction as to what information you need in order to make an informed decision, and how would you like us to proceed? If you would like us to proceed in doing due diligence, what would you like to see from staff?
Thank you. Council, any initial questions or comments? Okay, well, I'll kick off, and I've been aware of this group looking at this and doing some analysis for at least 18 months, at least. Interesting concept. Obviously, it's a lot of money. This is, in light of what I think is the public perception of the financial wherewithal of this group to ultimately have a closing. I don't think it's something that we should ignore. Probably a fiduciary obligation, but my thought kind of went along the lines of the council directing the manager and anyone else who he felt needed to work with him from among staff and our legal team was to determine what path the proposer has identified, where they are in identifying that path, and what the mechanism for the removal of those impediments would be, and what a potential time frame would be. Even going so far as, talking about some costs, perhaps even some accommodation with VSGS and then coming back to us after individual briefings for a more encompassing public conversation as to whether or not this would go forward, and then at that point talk about, some cost recovery, some determination on our part from our own professionals as to what the value might be if the mitigation is accomplished, those kinds of things to even to determine if this is a lift that our road we want to go down, just to get some more encompassing information to give us a better idea about making a decision as to whether or not we would go forward. There are an awful lot of moving parts and layers to this a potential transaction. Council? Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with getting an appraisal. I think it's our responsibility to do so. That way we can make sure that we are, in fact, releasing the property under the right circumstances. On the face of it, I mean, $50 million. Thank you for the opportunity to consider this transaction. The accompanying information with the LOI is that they're seeking a light industrial with 0 residential planned at this time. So that as well is good to hear that that's part of the vision of the development. I would like to see us get into negotiations with, or at least discussions and negotiations, while we simultaneously go forward with an appraisal. I don't see why we can't do both at the same time. That way we are taking advantage of the opportunity being presented. And as you mentioned, it's been a couple months since this has kind of been, the idea has been thrown around, so I'm sure word has gotten around. If there's been any other interest, we would have probably heard, but I haven't seen anything come in through the city manager's office. If that can be confirmed, is there any other interest being presented at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, not yet.
But let me ask, though, to the attorneys in that regard, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but are we not under a legal obligation to advertise the property generally before accepting this?
The second step of this, if you were interested, would be to define the process that you want to go down. Historically, the properties that the city has been approached about have resided within the CRA boundaries. Within the CRA boundaries, there are specific statutory requirements for the disposition of property where there has to be a public notice issued for 30 days soliciting any and all offers, and we have dovetailed that. We've done it as a straight notice, minimalist, it's for statutory compliance, and we've also done that in conjunction with a full-blown RFP where we've had a better idea of the type of development that we wanted to see on a particular property. So you have multiple avenues against you. With respect to consulting with the proposer now, there's nothing that would prevent you from speaking with him now. However, if, when we get to the process discussion, you were to issue a solicitation, that window would close for the duration of the public solicitation until those things were open. It would be treated as a normal RFP, and that would be closed until the manager were to make a recommendation to you at a public meeting.
Thank you. And I think my first reaction at this point, I think my thought process is that an appraisal on this property right now would be very difficult without having a very deep understanding of what it takes with respect to several different agencies that hold the cards on the restrictions, what it would take to release those. So that's kind of where my thought process is to have, to the extent that the proposer would reveal their due diligence, if you will, and to give us an idea of what actions would be necessary to release the restrictions, you can't really do an appraisal. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in sitting back anymore and spending a lot of city money for other people's proposals. I think that implicit in this and our next discussion is going to be along the lines of some potential cost deposit. The attorneys are going to spend a lot of time with this. The appraisal could be tens and tens of thousands of dollars. This is a very specialized situation. Mm-hmm.
So you're referring to doing an appraisal based on unmitigated or reversing the mitigations. And I was considering like an as-is appraisal, or that's what...
Matt, I think that it would be pretty safe to say that in its as-is condition, the appraisal is an easy zero, or maybe even a negative.
There's not a lot of utility with the conservation easements on it at present. So I think that you would see, the offer, that letter they get, I'm sure is predicated on the assumption that, and it is because they won't close until they're allowed to build on the property, that those restrictions will have been removed. Now,
let's just say, for example, in lay terms, let's just use these numbers, that ready-to-go industrial property is $1 million an acre. But if you have to spend $500,000 an acre to have it unmitigated, then it's only worth $500,000 to us.
Right, but I'm sorry that I'm not explaining myself correctly, but in reference to how the appraiser approaches their valuation, I'm not trying to add layers of reviewing what we would want it to be and add value of it being an industrial park or a commercial park, but versus just as its land value, and then we factor in the cost for mitigation, which we can calculate separately, which is in the industry would be understood to be a certain cost per acre to unmitigated property. So we can calculate the mitigation cost, but understanding the value of the land in its location undeveloped is what I meant, not as is. So is that not what we want to know, is what is the value of our land undeveloped, and then we can calculate the mitigation costs to know what that would be worth to us if we were to develop it ourselves. As of now, I don't believe that there has been any interest from the city. In all the years, I haven't heard of us consider putting this out for RFP, but developing it. It's been sitting there. There was one person that came to me referencing wanting to put a passive park, RV style park there. There was zero interest for that. This is a hot offer. And so I would like to know what this land at its size and location would be valued at, undeveloped, understanding that there's mitigation costs. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be way under $50 million. And then I would also like to make sure that if we go into those negotiations that we're making that decision based on having a valuation. But we didn't go through an RFP process for the VSGS. We didn't go through all of that. And we can recognize when there's a good deal and when there's an opportunity present before us and be able to make a decision and proceed without having the burden of processes which we're not legally obligated to do an RFP. But we don't necessarily have to spend 60 days evaluating what the worth of the land is. We can negotiate, we can study the value, and we can come to a determination within the next 30 to 60 days is what I believe. But
Okay, so maybe you weren't paying attention when I said that I have personal knowledge that it has taken them at least 18 months to determine what a path may be to demitigate it. And implicit in that is knowing what the cost of demitigation is. And then presumably that $53 million that's thrown against the wall plus the demitigation cost would be fair market value for what their use is. So let me make this analogy. A family that we all know didn't go out and sell their agricultural property north of BJ's for agricultural use. Sandero's sale price was valued at the ultimate use that needed a lot of layers of approval. So we kind of have to, I'm not really following your thought process on negotiating now. I think any negotiation is very, very premature, that we need to have an understanding of what, either spend a lot of our own money to reinvent the wheel for what the proposer has already determined, or hope that the proposing group will sit down in good faith with our team and be open about their path to demitigation. And then, at that point, maybe we need to we'd have to have an appraisal at some point, or some idea of what light industrial property is worth per acre, and then back out what their anticipated costs are. But for us to go retain our own counsel and sort through and work with these agencies would take months and months and months and months.
I'm not trying to go back and forth here, but I guess what's valuable to me is, assuming the land was not mitigated, I would like to know what the value of the property would be, and then make a decision on that. And you were saying per acre it was estimated how much?
I didn't. I think with the mitigation in place, it may very well be a negative.
No, but if it was not,
my hypothetical.
Right.
Okay, a hypothetical of $1 million an acre is, and I think, we've got to nail down the numbers, because there's a 100-acre fill pit that you've got to back out of that number, which, by the way, I think under our fill agreement, we are not legally able to convey the fill pit, which, as far as I can tell, is included in the proposal. So there are a lot of bumps in the road to even understand what we're really talking about potentially conveying here. But it was a hypothetical. We'll say $1 million for ready to go an acre for commercial or for light industrial property. So, what's that for? So $1 million an acre is $400 million. Let's say it's 400 acres, okay? And they're offering us 53. So implicit in that is what they're saying, it's maybe $350 million to demitigate. I need some credible information that 53 is a good and fair number.
Right. And what you're saying,
50,
it could take us, if we had the right team in place, it could take us 18 months to figure it out, just like it took them.
It could. And the legal talent with that know-how, the practice in that area, are very limited in South Florida.
Right.
They've retained the best.
Right.
We're going to have a hard time finding our own independent folks that don't have conflicts.
Right. So I don't foresee us hiring our own team to do that kind of work. So we either have to decide to agree to sell without the appraisal, or you were saying to ask them for a deposit, but then we want them to also give us their
And I think
goods?
that's, yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I view this as right now as a two-level process. We authorize the manager to take a team and sit down and get more information, including their path to demitigation. And if the manager and his team feels that this is a credible path forward and a financially viable group, we come back, and then we have the discussions as to appraisal, what our obligations would be to work with these agencies, and who's going to pay for what. I think that an appraisal and a cost deposit are future discussions. That all we have is a 2-page letter that was thrown out on the eve of a significant event, making this proposal. We barely have crumbs in front of us, and I think that we can't start talking about negotiating without more information in hand.
Okay, I'll rest there. I really don't want the offer to get cold. It's $50 million for land that we can do absolutely zero with, and that would take us a huge amount of time, effort, and capital to even start to develop. So for the proposer that's listening, please stay at the table, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate soon, but I'll rest there for now. Thank you.
One final thought. It doesn't matter what covenants we enter into. If they give us their firstborn, if we give it commercial zoning, it allows Live Local to be installed on that property. That's a big deal. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, thank you. And being that this sits inside of District 2, again, I appreciate the offer of $50 million. That's a lot of money. But I think there's a lot to be learned in this process as of yet. I've had some brief discussions with the applicant. I don't have an idea of exactly what they want to do long term. And ultimately, that's going to have to come back to us unless it is Live Local type things. So I think it's incumbent upon us to get more into the details, let you all provide that information to the city staff, and that will come back to us because I need to get some feedback from the citizens inside of District 2 as well, and along with the neighboring areas to include Oasis and Waterstone and the villages. Any impacts there are going to impact everybody. I think that we need to get some further details. Talking with the staff, they don't have the expertise to do this type of work in-house, and I think we're going to end up having to hire a consultant here or there. All that costs money. The appraisal costs money. Again, you threw it out there that maybe the applicant's willing to possibly give us a deposit to help with some of those cost recovery aspects. I don't know. I haven't spoke to the applicant about that. I think it's something that needs to be discussed, and I believe that through the manager and his staff that they can come to that agreement down the road. But I believe that they need to provide a little more detail to the staff so we have more information. And with that, I would be willing to move this forward, but also have the manager work with them to see exactly where they want to go. So we go both directions. We have some decisions being made on what possibly can go there long term, as well as we're performing the due diligence that we need to do to find out what the property's actually worth. So I'm willing to do that, and I don't think it handcuffs us either way. I'm open to thoughts from other council members.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, obviously a lot of moving pieces. $50 million is a great opportunity. I had obviously many questions during the briefings, and now I have even more. But so just a couple questions to understand, especially I believe it's 20% that VSGS has an offer, has first refusal.
It's 160 acres.
Okay, so of that 160 acres, for example, that first opportunity for refusal would be based on a regular appraisal, or could that be based on what we're being offered?
No. They have a right to match an offer. You have no obligation to accept an offer.
Okay.
So if the city were to decide that they wanted to accept something, then the offer would be presented to VSGS, and we haven't talked about process and what that would look like yet. We'll get there if it's something that you want to proceed with. But VSGS has a right to match the price for the 160 acres. That's what they paid for in their agreement.
Right, but matching the price of what? A
written offer, not an appraisal. This is not an appraisal.
Any
this would be
offer
based on a written offer
Okay.
that you have an interest in accepting.
Okay. So with all the mitigation issues, if we were to move forward now with allowing staff to have these negotiations, conversations, wouldn't it be on Blue Nest to figure out what the mitigation pieces are And once that happens and property is sold, it's no longer on us.
My understanding of the letter of interest is that they will handle all of that. They have laid out a 270-day timeline. That's their anticipated timeline that they believe, but apparently they've been working on this for 18 months apparently already, so they must be fairly confident in their path forward.
So that's what I was thinking is then how can we not have the negotiations? How would they be able to go forth with finding out what that means for them if we aren't going through with any type of negotiation or conversation, right? They wouldn't be able to have that fully appraised if we're not working with them, correct?
Well, they're, I'm sure, valuing the property based on the removal of the easements and the cost of the removal of easements, and that's, I'm sure, how they arrived at their number.
Okay, so without having conversations with us, it wouldn't be in their best interest to go through any more.
No, I presume that they've done their due diligence if they're willing to proceed
Okay.
under this. I don't want to speak for the applicant, he's here.
Sure.
But I presume that his group is comfortable that they've done the due diligence they need to present the offer.
Yeah, no, that was those were the questions I was trying to come up with, is what would be the negative for the city to continue the conversations. And
Well, I think one of the points that the virtues of having the conversation is you'll learn more about the actual development plan for the property, which is not as flushed out in the letter of interest as we've had with some previous proposals where they tell you exactly what they would like, and that may inform your decision as well.
right.
So, there's no harm in having that conversation to the extent that the proposer is willing to
Because that
have a
would have to come
dialogue
back
and
to
share the
us.
information.
And that would have to come back to us for approval, correct?
There are many things that would need to come
Yeah.
back to you for approval before we got to a finish line at this point.
Okay. Well, I'll rest for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, sure. Let us hear from Councilman Roth and then back to Councilwoman Avila.
Awesome, thank you. It's exciting. We have useless dirt out there that we own, and I agree with a lot of the things I heard here today. But I do think a lot of the onus will be on the developer to pay for a majority of the expenses. We did not go out and ask for any proposal on this property. It came freely from the public. And I think that any due diligence requirements should be proffered by the developer. It's $50 million for the purchase or the sale of that property, but you got to also consider the tax value that comes with that purchase. And as it sits there today, it doesn't generate a dollar for us. In fact, it costs us money to maintain it. So I'm all forward letting the pros go after this and do the best they can to bring back the information that we may require up here, and to bring back a deal that all of us will win on. I think the public will win on this deal. I think if we can protect that residential component from not being a part of it, that may be something to consider too. But I think for somebody to have the vision to undo stuff that we can't undo, we as a city could not undo the mitigation there. And most of us don't even know what that really means, but the mitigations were put there in order for us to build the Homestead Miami Speedway. And the only way to really unmitigate is to purchase land again as a reserve to mitigate for this land. So there's going to be a huge expense in that, and I don't know what that number is going to be. I mean, it's probably astronomical, but I think it's worth digging into and finding out and bringing back the information for us and for them as well to make sure that they truly want to go through with a project like this. So those are my words. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. And to Councilman Fletcher's point, my goal at the end of this is to have plans, renderings, a clear understanding of what the development is going to be before we sign any transfers. So this would be part of the process. Yeah. So thank you very much for clarifying that. And as of right now, what direction do we have to give, Mayor?
to your question, my line of thinking is just authorize the manager to go out and get additional basic information. And what I mean when I say that is, what's your mitigation path forward? Where are you in the process? Can you provide us with documentation from agencies? You know, you have, I think, South Florida Water Management, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the Army Corps of Engineers. There are 3 or 4 different state and federal agencies that all have to be at the table approving this, not the transaction, but the demitigation of this parcel. So I think it's important. It's important for us to know where they are. I don't think they use the related group analogy. I don't know that we want to sit for another 2 years and have nothing happen. And, you know, and again, we talk about the Sports Performance Hub project has a right of first refusal on 160 acres. We could carve that 160 acres out. We could say to this proposer, we're dealing in good faith with our new partner that's committed to put $270, $300 million into the city, that you can't have their 160 acres, but, and we're not obligated to put any of that under contract. I think the attorney and the manager both said that. We're not obligated to do anything that I'm not going to sit here and put the future expansion and our good faith and our great working relationship with the Sports Hub people at risk in any manner whatsoever. And let me just throw this out there, and you can come unglued an hour later. When we first started dealing with Sports Performance Hub, and they proposed the right of first refusal, Mr. Bass confirmed to me which attorney, the Sports Performance Hub folks' attorney, should contact about where are you in this situation, maybe we can work together, etc. The Blue Nest attorney never responded. They sat silently on their hands and then came in at the last minute with a letter throwing stuff against the wall saying, hey, don't do this, we'll give you all this multi-millions of dollars. So was it a direction to the attorney? Was it not dealing in good faith? I don't know what it was. I just don't know. You know, I see a lot of smirking and laughing going out there in the audience, and maybe he thinks he's bought the election and no matter what I say or do, this is going to go forward. And I suspect that's probably what it is. And, you know, Mr. Gassant back there has a really good track record of getting really bad approvals in the Redlands for development. So, you know, certainly, you know, I've got my suspicions about that. And you can laugh and smirk too, Mr. Gassant, all the way to the bank. But it's our property. And I represent the people who own it. And it's the 100,000 residents of the city of Homestead. Not foreign investors, not people who are saying light commercial, but whose real business in this country is low-end, affordable, and subsidized housing. And that's the last thing anybody in this community, I think, really wants out there. So just some background that I don't know that there's been a lot of good faith, and that's why I don't want to frame this direction as a discussion, or I'm sorry, as due diligence or negotiation. This is just getting basic information.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, if I may. I'm okay with that. We have a council meeting in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have more details by then. But just for clarification, if we do decide to go into negotiations, we would present VSGS with the opportunity to execute their first right of refusal on their 20% of those acres.
Well,
It's not 20%, it's on an identified piece of property for which they have paid a nominal $20,000 to have that right of first refusal.
At that time, they would decide if they want to execute their first right of refusal? That's
No, we have to have as I see it, they have nothing to act on until we have a fully vetted final contract in front of us to accept or reject. That could be months and months into the future.
That
But
was my
as I
question.
said, we don't have to include that 160 acres in the contract. We have the ability to go to this proposer and say, you know what? BSGS has dealt in good faith. We're not going to put their 160 acres in play. If you want the other 340, we'll negotiate with you on that. That's a discussion we're going to have up here later. So is it the direction then to the manager to go out and try to get some basic information and brief each of us and then come back?
The proposer's here. I'd like to see if there's any comments or additional information. There were questions that were asked.
Thank you. Pedro Sean calling tonight with officers at 701 Brickell Avenue on behalf of Brooklyn Nest Development. I'm not going to address some of the comments that the mayor made earlier. I don't think that they're particularly relevant for what we're trying to discuss today with respect to this.
It absolutely goes to the
project.
good faith,
Okay.
credibility,
So-
and honesty
absolutely, Mayor.
of you and your clients.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bat that away for a second. We can address those head on. The idea that this developer doesn't have the ability to move forward with this project and get this done when every single property that they have put under contract, they have closed on and have moved forward with. This developer is a large entity that has a conglomerate that builds light industrial and that builds residential homes for sell homes. This idea that they're building subsidized or problematic housing or are doing things in bad faith when they had substantial folks in support of their projects throughout the county, I think is out of turn and out of line. But with respect to this proposal that is here before you, with respect to the letter of intent that we provided, the idea is that this developer is going to take on all the risks. So if we're not able to mitigate it, if we're not able to get the Department of Interior, if we're not able to get the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers or the EPA or DERM or the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, then we are at risk, not the city. So all of this stuff about us sitting down and providing more information, the issue is that we would have to go through the process. We are saying we're going to give you this money. We're going to give you this deposit. We're going to move forward with this project, and we're going to say that we will have everything ready by the time of the 270 days, or else we're out of our deposit. We are taking the full risk. The city has no risk. If we don't do it, we don't do it. With respect to the right of first refusal, that entity already has that right. They will see, because there's already a letter of interest that is in front of you that shows the amount that we are paying for the amount for the land. They can say, you know what, we're going to match it. Or they'll say, you know what, we don't want to deal with the headache. We don't want to deal with what we know is a headache because we've already looked at this. We know what the process is going to take. And the idea that we're going to sit down with the city and say, hey, this is exactly how we're going to do everything. Go and tell everybody else that this is how we've decided we're going to address these conservation easements just doesn't make, at least under my humble opinion, doesn't make sense for any proposal to do. Now, what we will do is we will take that risk. We will say, we're going to move forward. We'll negotiate with the city. And if we don't do it, we're the ones that are out of gas. We're the ones who put the money on the line. The city doesn't lose anything, and there's an opportunity for the city to make some money. So I wasn't going to say anything, but once the mayor made a decision to, and look, I've always had a lot of respect for the mayor. I don't know where any of the stuff is coming from. I don't know why any of that stuff was brought up, but I wanted to make sure that we could address those issues on the record because this applicant has said that they're going to come in here, they're going to address these issues, and they're taking the risk themselves.
Mr. Gassant, if your client cannot come sit down with my city manager and my attorney and even talk generally about their path forward, I have no interest in any further discussion and will not support anything. And I think the $50 million that's offered is a joke. I've had meetings with your clients, I think, before you were even in the picture, as wearing my mayor hat. And you may be 50% off on what it's worth to the city. So to say that we're going to go negotiate blindly, we may have done that 15 years ago, but we don't do that here anymore. Now, I understand that you've probably got a malleable council that you're going to get your 4 votes tonight, but I didn't get here without going down swinging, and we'll continue to do that. If you do not have the good faith and character and integrity to even agree to sit down with our staff and our team to talk about how you're going to do it, at the get-go, I have no trust.
Yeah, so to that point, man, I'm just going to address that one point.
No trust.
Mr. Gonzalez, if I can interject, I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
I don't understand where the strong concern is, and I haven't heard yet that they are saying, no, we won't. I haven't heard that they're objecting to.
I did.
It says it here, that the inspection period begins at the effective date, and it says here that they're asking for the seller to provide our documents. Why would the buyer not provide additional documents? Why can't you give us a look into what the challenges are, convince us why this is such a huge undertaking and why only Blue Nest can do it? Why can't you be feasible to them?
I think some of the initial concerns would be, we would be happy to do it once we're in negotiations. It's another thing to say, give us all your cards on the table before we even go into negotiations as to how we're going to address these issues. Those are two very different things. So if the mayor is saying, hey, sit down in negotiation with us, show us this, it's still in negotiations. So you have a very competent city manager. If the city manager during negotiations says, these guys don't know what they're doing, they don't have a path, they don't have an opportunity to get this done, I think we should suspend negotiations. Your city manager can do that. There's nothing stopping him from doing that. What we're saying is we would want to get into negotiations, know that we have a path forward, know that we have a path forward with the city to get this done, and then we're happy to have those discussions with the manager, with the staff, and get everybody on the same page. But to do this saying, hey, we're just going to tell you everything that we have done, tell you all the interests that we put in, the mayor has his perspective. I disagree with it. I'll leave it at that. But I think it would be appropriate, and this is pretty standard, you would have those discussions with property owners after you're under negotiations. You're talking about the property, you're talking about the contract, we know that we're in discussions, we know that we're trying to move this forward, and you know what, it's fair for the manager to sit down and say, you know what, I want to know what you guys are doing, I want to know how you guys want to get there, and we can talk that through and tell them, this is generally what we are going to do to get this done. We have the faith, we have the commitment, and we know we have the ability to get this done.
Councilwoman, if I might, let me maybe clarify or say in a different manner. In order for us to analyze whether the money that's being offered is fair, we need to know, before we sign a contract for 50, 53, whatever it is, there's a lot of other numbers floating around, we need to know what the path forward is, either through the work, probably the hundreds of thousands of dollars that Blue Nest has already expended on attorneys and other professionals that our staff could be privy to and it not become a public record, and there are means to do that, or we are going to have to expend potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars to determine for our own whether or not the offered price is fair based upon the cost of mitigation. And solely based upon the failure to respond to multiple attempts at contacting by our Sports Performance Hub people, I don't have any faith in the integrity and good faith of these proposers based upon their course of dealing. By failing to respond and then coming to council and slinging something against the wall, literally as we were walking in here to approve the Sports Hub contract when their correspondence was an attempt to derail that. So, you come here with a lot of bad check marks, Mr. Gasson. Your client does.
So, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, I want to say that I have received none of this correspondence that the mayor is referencing. I would assure you that to the extent that there were any correspondence, that I would jump on it immediately. That's how we operate. I can tell you that I'm here now, and I'm telling you that we will engage in those discussions because it doesn't make sense for us to give you this letter of interest, give you this offer, tell you that we have 270 days to go through the process, understand that even if we leave here tonight with negotiations, we have to negotiate.
But why should we go spend a lot of money, maybe trying to buy a pig in a poke, as I used to say, yes, I'm showing my age, to determine on our own, when work's already been done, to determine whether the offered price is fair and balanced? You know, we have our own I guess the fact of the matter is we have our own due diligence to do before a deal is approved at any amount of money. And they're asking us to sign a deal to lock in a purchase price without the opportunity for due diligence on our part.
I have an addition, oh, sorry, Vice Mayor.
Let's get back to the vice mayor and then back to you.
Again, so many moving parts. The only way that we're going to go forth if there are discussions that are going to be had. We have a very capable city manager. Are you amenable to leaving that $50 million off until some discussions are had? I think that is the only piece that is tough for us. Obviously, $50 million sounds great, but without being able to see any piece of whatever this appraisal might look like, can we leave that $50 million to be discussed once?
Look, I think it is a negotiation to say whenever somebody offers a letter of interest, there's always a feedback.
Right,
That's
the
what
50 million
negotiations
is
are.
not set.
Now, I would tell you the 50 million is what we believe is going to be appropriate,
Okay.
but we're going to have a discussion about it.
Okay.
And so,
Can we move it to allow them to have these discussions? Obviously, the letter was sent sometime in December, so whatever time they didn't respond, if that was the case, we can chalk it up to New Year's. But despite who it is or what, I think it's incumbent on us that we allow the city manager to have these discussions and then make a more educated vote.
Yeah, I'll second her motion with a comment to Mr. Gasson. In your conditions to close in your LOI, it says there shall be no pending existing prohibitions, restrictive covenants, moratoriums, including City of Homestead moratorium, or restrictions on the property existing on that date of closing.
that's right.
But I want to make sure that we understand that our intention is to make sure that there's no residential, at least as of right now, no
That is absolutely our
residential
intent.
intended. So that I would assume that would be some kind of restriction or covenant or something very, very codified to eliminate residential potential there, so.
In that regard, if I might, Mr. Pearl, wasn't one of the last couple of amendments to the Live Local that a Live Local project can proceed irrespective of any covenants that were issued in connection with the underlying land use that is now being relied upon to do a Live Local? I thought so.
I will have to get back to you. I can't answer that question today.
I mean, my fear is once it has a non-residential designation, it is open for Live Local.
Definitely, Mayor, that is a major concern for me as well, and I would want to hear back from our city attorneys on that before any negotiations, for sure.
Well, sure. And look, if we can just get back, I hope, let's just have whatever basic informational discussion the proposer is willing to have with our staff. And our staff is going to have to come back to us and we'll make a decision as to whether or not to proceed.
I guess, the technical term of negotiation versus discussion, to me, it's like we're negotiating, the documents, processes, intentions, the dollar amount at the end of the day is going to come back to us, and the site plans and approvals, rendering. So call it a discussion, call it a negotiation. I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to get more information and come to a conclusion.
And look, we would just be asking
And that's
that
a discussion.
that the council would, have negotiations with the proposer so that we can move forward with this and see if we can enter into an agreement. That's really what we're looking for, and we're excited about the opportunity to speak to your manager and see what the opportunities are.
Okay. So where I think what you, Do you want to restate your motion and what your intent is, Vice Mayor?
Is the bottom line not to allow city manager and Blue Nest to discuss this proposal?
Just get more information.
More information.
That's your motion. And your second will stand.
I just want to make sure, because I'm not clear. I'm honestly not clear. Is it to negotiate while we're getting more information about this deal to be able to come to a potential agreement, to authorize the city manager to do that?
So I don't believe that there is enough information for a formal negotiation. And again, you can use different definitions of different terms. You need to sit down with the city manager, explain a little more, give us some more information, but that discussion starts. A negotiation or a discussion, it's the same thing. We're not agreeing to any purchase prices or anything until a discussion is started, correct?
That is right.
Okay.
So,
Can it
so
be
you
clear?
call it a negotiation, we call it a discussion. What's the legal definition?
Big difference.
Look,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Big difference.
So Matt can educate us on that. Thank you.
So, what I hear is a concern for really fact gathering at this point in the discussion. If you're not, I don't hear a consensus to be committal to direct staff to execute the LOI to commence like a negotiation based on these terms. I heard a few things that you wanted more information about. There'll be some things that I understand will probably be considered proprietary and not want to be shared. To the extent that the proposer will discuss their plan for remediation of the mitigation conservation easements, perhaps some more detail on the development plan itself, because I hear concerns about certain types of development that are undesirable. Any information that could be provided to staff about that would probably be useful. And I think when you have some more of that information, and that it shouldn't take that long, that conversation, then the manager can come back to you with the information that he has gathered, and you can decide if you want to invest money in your own independent appraisals or experts to verify, do your own due diligence based on the results of these conversations. But I don't think that these initial discussions should take, it's not like you're talking the months and months that you're talking about if you were to engage those consultants now before starting that conversation.
The staff's recommendation here says whether to direct staff to proceed with due diligence regarding the non-binding letter. So proceed with the due diligence and non-binding letter. I think that is clear enough. Thank you.
Agreed, Mayor. I mean, do you think that can get resolved by council meeting so we can determine by council meeting if we can enter into negotiations?
I'm hopeful that
That's
we
up
should
to
be able
everyone's,
this out.
Mr. Mayor.
to their schedule. Councilman Fletcher?
So, again, I'm happy to have the discussion, or whatever you want to call it. I still have some concerns for the residents of Homestead, and I think, long-term, I think the overall look ahead for what this project could be, again, we don't know all the details. We don't know what's ultimately going to go there. That's going to have to come back for us at some point for approval, whether it be light industrial and warehouses or something else. It's going to have to come back to us at some point for approval. This doesn't bind us to that, I don't believe. But I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure we understand what it is so we can go educate our community as well. Because I need the feedback from my residents. I think we all do. And ultimately, they're going to be the ones that tell us whether they want it or not. And I don't want to give that control away to anybody. That's up to us. So, thank you.
And real quick, one other thing. I believe that this letter of intent intends to include the fill pit, that surface area, based on the acreage. If that is the case, then we're going to have some advice as to what would be, what other party has to come to the table to accomplish that. We're not selling you the fill, but I guess that would be the surface area of the pit, which goes to density and all those kinds of things. I'm not under any delusions that this is not really intended to be residential. But, okay, so is there anyone online wishing to speak to this? All right, anyone else here? Councilman, sorry. Turn on your mic. Oh, you're good, you're good, okay. All right, so we have a motion to go further with some preliminary discussions and fact-finding, directing the manager and his team to do that. So, is anyone in opposition to that direction? So then, conversely, we have a unanimous direction by council to authorize the manager to do that. Next item, tab 2, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 2 is the first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending its declaration of the city's intent to participate in the Florida retirement system for general employees effective on or about April 1, 2026, providing that all general employees hired by the city on or after the effective date of the city's participation in the Florida retirement system shall become compulsory members of the Florida retirement system, providing that all general employees who are participating in another city retirement plan on the effective date of the city's participation in the Florida retirement system shall have the right to elect to continue participating in such plan or become members of the Florida retirement system, authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements with the Florida Division of Retirement to accomplish the intent of the ordinance, providing for withholding compensation, Social Security contributions from employees' pay, providing for payment of required Florida retirement system contributions and assessments, providing for the establishment, maintenance, and submission of such records as may be required for participation in the Florida retirement system, designating the city manager as the custodian and withholding and reporting agent, providing that the city adopts by contract the terms related to the participation in the system, providing that the city's decision to participate in the Florida retirement system shall be irrevocable, providing that the city clerk shall furnish certified notice, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date. And to the extent that the council has any questions, my partner, Milton Collins, is here to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this? Vice Mayor Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, obviously, any opportunity to do better for our city employees. I know there was some conversation in our briefing that you were considering striking general from general employees.
So,
And I just see in section 3 that that is still there.
yeah, it was a comment that was made subsequent to the agenda being prepared. And the labor attorney is here to provide further clarifications.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, there was some preliminary discussion about modifying this ordinance, but the general employees terminology will remain. And just to let everyone know, general employees is all non-sworn employees. So sworn, they're not a
Full-time,
part of this.
part-time,
Yes,
seasonal.
no temp, no seasonal,
Whatever.
but all regular employees.
Thank you for that clarification. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions? Do we have a motion? All right, it's been moved by Councilman Cannonball. Did you have a question or a second, Mr. Fletcher? Okay, a second by the Vice Mayor. Okay. Anyone in the audience or on the line wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and I think we need a roll call on this one.
Councilman Fletcher? Yes. Councilman Cannonball?
Yes.
Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilwoman Konski? Yes. Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Bailey? Yes. Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Mr. Pearl, tab 3. Well, James you got to do your quasi judicial dance.
Just give me one moment. So, Mayor, tab number 3, tab number 4, and tab number 5 all deal with the same proposed development for the Palace. This is Helen Holmes. If you may recall, we started a quasi-judicial hearing on these items, and then we deferred it from the November council meeting? Yes. So this will be a continuation of that hearing. So before we get started at this time, I'd ask anyone in the audience who's wishing to speak on this item to please raise their hand to be sworn by the clerk.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God? Thank you. You may be seated.
So, Mayor, I can read each one of these titles into the record, and then we can proceed with having a... So tab 3,
Consolidated discussion, yes.
right. Tab 3 is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving an amendment to previously approved site plan as requested by Helen Holmes of South Dade for the development of a 240-bed skilled nursing assisted living facility on approximately 5.6 acre parcel of land located at 3100 Campbell Drive, legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. Tab 4 is a corresponding variance application. It's a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting a variance request as requested by Helen Holmes, South Dade, from the City Code of Ordinances, Section 30-1, definitions to allow a roof parapet height range between 6 feet 3 inches to 11 feet 10 inches, where 5 feet is required, and a variance from City Code Section 30-433, subsection B8C, off-street parking area requirements in all districts to permit a total of 145 parking spaces, where 427 parking spaces are required for the development of a 240-bed assisted living facility on approximately 5.6 acre parcel of land located at 3100 Campbell Drive, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for effective date. And finally, tab 5 is a special exception request. This is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving a special exception as requested by Helen Holmes, South Dade, for the development of a 240-bed skilled nursing assisted living facility on approximately 5.6 acre parcel located at 3100 Campbell Drive, as legally described in Exhibit A, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Vasquez.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Javi Vasquez, law offices at 600 Brickell Avenue, here on behalf of Helen Holmes of South Dade, LLC, better known as the Palace. As you guys know, this application was deferred on November 19th. Just real quickly, as a courtesy to those that are here as part of our team, Mr. Alon Ben David from the ownership group is here with me tonight. Mr. Gabriel Salazar, our architect, Mr. Gilman Rodriguez, our project manager, my associate Janelle Perez, and Mr. Richard Garcia, our traffic consultant. They are all here with me to answer any questions that this council may have. I made a full presentation on November 19th, so I'm going to try to dive as needed into that part of the presentation. I'd like to concentrate on what has happened since this application was deferred. And the deferral has allowed the traffic consultants to exchange and finalize their comments relating to traffic. I have submitted to Ms. Storch the signed and sealed documents from our side. The deferral has also allowed the owner to provide and clarify information relating to parking and staffing. On the quick refresher, and again, I'm not going to dive very deep into last time, but you all know what we're doing here. The northern partial is improved with a 201-bed assisted living facility, which was built in 2016, and the approvals tonight will allow for the Palace for its proposed expansion, consisting of a 240-bed skilled nursing center on the southern parcel. We have 3 requests before you tonight, as has been said before and clarified by your attorney. We're doing one presentation, and then I guess this council can take separate votes. Very important to the conversation is the fact that the 2 tracts are being treated as one parcel for development purposes. We have submitted for the record as well the original covenant in lieu, which allows that separation line, if you will, between the 2 parcels to disappear, so that this can be treated as one fluent parcel for design and development purposes and circulation of driveways, etc. And lastly, all 3 applications come before you with recommendation of approval from your professional planning staff, subject to certain conditions, all of which we are in agreement with. Now, let's touch for a minute on the things that we've been able to accomplish since the deferral. the owner's traffic consultant, Mr. Richard Garcia, who's here tonight, completed and submitted the traffic study, which was reviewed by the city's consultant, Bowman Engineering, who's also represented here by Mr. John Kim. The consultants exchanged comments, and on December 22nd, Bowman issued its final review and determined that, quote, the applicant has sufficiently addressed the remaining review comments, and I believe that special attention should be given to the Bowman letter dated December 19th, where particular attention was given to the possibility of a right turn deceleration lane. And I know that's been the subject of significant conversation. Bowman specifically confirmed and stated that based on its review of the available right-of-way, only 80 feet of the 185 feet that would be required would be available, which is significantly substandard and not recommended. We specifically reached out to the Celeste development owners to see if they could assist with right-of-way. They specifically told us verbally and in writing that they could not do that. Mr. Kim also reviewed and addressed the mitigation factors memorandum that we prepared that talked about things like the existing larger driveway radius return, and he stated, we agree that given the right-of-way constraints, providing a larger radius return does mitigate the absence of an exclusive right turn lane. And I can dive deeper into that mitigation memo, but I'd like to hold off on that if needed with council conversation. As it relates to parking, as you know, we've been forced to request a variance from the required off-street parking spaces because your code does not include standards for senior living facilities. Under your code, parking is calculated at one space per 300, resulting in a requirement of 427 spaces, which is absolutely unreasonable when applied to senior living. In lieu of the standard, the proposed development will provide parking in accordance with the city's 1990 code, which did have parking standards for senior living, as well as Miami-Dade County requirements for nursing homes. The required parking per your 1990 code is 130 spaces. We are providing 150 for this phase. The required parking, if you were to look at the county standards, is 145 spaces, and like I said, we are providing 150. And then notwithstanding the fact that we are complying with both your 90 code and the county requirements, the Palace will also be implementing a valet program to be used during special events. We appreciate Mr. Roth bringing this to the light so that we can, in fact, make sure that when there are special events, there are no issues with parking. In the revised letter of intents, subsequent to the deferral, we did also provide specific detail as to staffing and the staggered types of staffing that we have. I'll leave that for a conversation with the council if needed. And again, for the sake of this presentation, I would like, and for the sake of your agenda, I'd like not to be longer than necessary. In the presentation in November, I'd like to remind the council of the PowerPoint presentation where we looked at the community events that are sponsored and hosted by the Palace, and I only bring that up because of their corporate citizenry that they offer as a first-class corporate citizen of Homestead. And lastly, as far as we know, and based on last time we met in November, we are not aware of any objectors for this project. It comes before you with a recommendation of approval. We are in acceptance with all the conditions of the approval, and we would respectfully request your approval accordingly. And again, our entire team is here for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Council, any questions, comments? Vice Mayor Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again for your brief presentation. It feels like last year that we had that really late night discussing parking and everything. I think that was a big miscommunication that that second parking lot was going to be taken out. I think my only concern that came up during the briefings was I know that the traffic study was done and one piece with the turning lane was off by 0.01. But regardless, I wanted to hear from the Palace themselves regarding getting any of their residents over to the hospital is there something that you would like us to request of the county to make that straight shot easier? I know that there's a break in the median there now, but would a right or left turning lane help in that sense at all?
Before I answer your question, I want to just clarify something you said at the beginning. The 1% issue had to do with, and you can ask your traffic consultant on this as well, but there's something called a de minimis impact review. And with these reviews, the impact of the proposed development is looked at, and if all the roads have a less than a 1% impact, it can be considered, it would be deemed de minimis, and a traffic study would not even be required. The only reason a traffic study was required on this one is because 2 of the 7 roads that were reviewed resulted in a 0.09%. That means 9/100ths of a percentage that put us over that 1%. And so it was almost like a statement that was being made that this is a de minimis impact development. I'd like to ask my client your question because I'm not aware of issues having to do with transporting patients to the hospital, and I'd like to address that because I think it's a very important issue. Give me 1 second. Vice Mayor, my client is very comfortable with our record of 9 years transporting patients, and 9 out of 10 times it's by ambulance, which obviously eliminates that concern. So I think we're good as far as having to make any special requests to the county.
That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else to my left? To my right? Councilman Roth? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for taking my calls and my questions, and for also providing the extra detail on the landscaping buffer between Oasis and the property line. That was important to me as well. And, given the circumstances and for the low impact of this facility, I think what has been presented is acceptable at this time. But if there's anything additional from my colleagues, I'd be happy to listen. Thank you.
One thing you mentioned, and I think, just maybe to clarify, I know that you made contact with the adjoining property owner, the Midtown Celeste. And it's not that the right-of-way is not there. The issue was the location of their driveways with respect. I don't want to leave the inference hanging out there that they did not dedicate right-of-way or sufficient right-of-way out on Campbell. It's the configuration of their driveways that was the issue, correct?
When I spoke to Mr. Arias, the way I stated it was, we don't have enough right-of-way. We have 80 feet, 180 feet are required. The city has asked us to at least reach out to see if it can be accommodated. We didn't dive any deeper than that. He went to his client and got back to me, so the answer was no.
Okay, because in talking with staff, it's been my understanding that, Lynn, it wasn't with respect to depth to accommodate a lane. It was with respect to their configuration, their development configuration. So I don't want anybody to leave with the idea that they got by without making the appropriate dedication for that project.
Thank you, Mayor, for clarifying.
Okay. So, Mr. White, can you give us some advice as to which order these need to go in?
Sure, Mayor. If we could start with tab 5, which is the special exception, as the first item for consideration, followed by the site plan and the variance.
Okay. All right, so tab 5 has been moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by the Vice Mayor, but before we go there, let's open the public hearing on all 3 items. Is there anyone online? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to any of these items? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. And we have a motion and a second on tab 5, which is the special exception. So let's have a roll call vote on that.
Councilman Ross? Yes. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Konski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilman Cannibal? Vice Mayor Bailey? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we need a motion now on tab 3.
I'm sorry, tab 4, the
Tab
variance
4, I'm
first.
sorry, tab 4, the variance request. Moved by Vice Mayor Bailey, seconded by Councilman Cannibal. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilwoman Konski?
Yes.
Councilman Ross? Yes. Councilman Cannibal? Yes. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bailey? Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And finally, tab 3, do we have a motion? Moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Roll call on tab 3, please.
Councilman Ross? Yes. Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilman Cannibal? Yes. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Konski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right.
Thank you all.
Long time
Mr.
coming.
Mendez,
Thank
would
you.
just like to say thank you. 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. And on behalf of the Palace Group, again, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. We look forward to it. Yeah, thank you. Okay. That takes us to tab 6, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 6 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, awarding RFP 2025-15 janitorial services for Group 1 to United States Services Industries, Inc., USSI, DBA Group in Ulan as primary, and Miami Janitorial Supplies, Inc. as secondary for Groups 2, 4, 5, and 6 to SFM Janitorial Services, LLC, United States Service Industries, Inc., USSI, DBA Group in Ulan, and Miami Janitorial Supplies, Inc., and for Group 3 to United States Services Industries, Inc., USSI, DBA's Group in Ulan, and Miami Janitorial Services, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement and necessary documents with each vendor for the project, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Second by me.
No hesitation there. Okay. Sign has been moved and seconded. Is there anyone who wishes to make public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a roll call vote on tab 6.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Cannibal? Yes. Councilwoman Konski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bailey? Yes. Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And tab 7.
Tab 7 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, formally adopting the City of Homestead America 250 logo, authorizing and regulating the use, print, publication, and variation of the logo, providing for a sunset of authorization on December 31st, 2026, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Questions or comments on this item? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, this is the year, so we might as well go big, right? So I know there was some discussion on what to use it on. I say use it on everything, and then we sunset December 31st and call it another 250. Thank you.
Agreed.
I agree with you.
And you state that in the form of a motion? And I'll be happy to second that since this whole logo was my idea. Thank you, staff. Okay. Anything
Mayor?
further from yes.
I think in the briefing, a very important and critical suggestion was made by Councilman Roth. Thinking through, I realized there is more to it. He had recommended to monetize the water tower, especially the one close to the Speedway. And this year, more importantly, is the Speedway Championship. So we council, with your permission, the administration will be coming back at some point with an item, perhaps sponsored by Councilman Roth, to monetize the water tower for perhaps additional maybe branding, or perhaps some vendors may want to put up something in, perhaps even the Speedway.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Fletcher.
I know, just to go back a second, we did have some discussion about some additional artwork that we were going to place on the water towers, and I know we we didn't like the first draft that came out. Are we still looking at doing that on the other water towers? Remember the
I
first
think
draft?
the fill-in artwork between the logos.
Correct.
That's correct. You want to fill it in.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. So you're correct, Councilman Fletcher. We presented to Council 3 variations. We had deferred it to a workshop setting, but a final decision has not been made. If it's the direction, happy to re-engage with a workshop and for us to present the entire AIPP plan, which was a part of that discussion, and then have council make a decision.
I think we definitely need to revisit it, and I would just make a recommendation that the artwork not be stretched and put around, just so we can get a clear idea. Obviously, the artist is going to know how to wrap it, but if we can see a more realistic view of what the artwork would actually be, I think that's one thing that at least threw me off, is it was just stretched and skewed awkwardly when you were trying to give us a visual of what it would look around the tower.
So for clarity, that the submissions are done to scale, that it is not out of scale with the actual water tower. Okay?
I think the artists had submitted their work, and then staff tried to give a more accurate vision of what it would look like wrapped, but it didn't,
Okay.
I thought it looked off.
Okay, so we'll present that feedback, and then in the subsequent workshop, we'll have a secondary submission from the respondents, and then we'll take it from there.
Now,
Again, Mr. Mayor and Council, I still think while having this conversation, this is NASCAR 26. Let's carve out this period, perhaps to factor in Speedway, perhaps to monetize the one by the Speedway, just for this year alone. We'll do.
and now that we know from approval to unveiling, murals can be done quickly. Surprisingly. No, we don't have a date for that yet, right?
The CRA director, do you have a date for the unveiling of the mural at Crow Marketplace?
We will be meeting on the 13th to set that date. The artist had an accident at home and has damaged his hand, so he's paused briefly on this. Also doing a little bit of traveling, but we will be planning the formal unveiling as soon as that's complete for all of you to come and participate. If you have seen it, it is nearly complete, and we're very pleased at the work that he's been doing with that.
You think you have a date by the next CRA board meeting, which is on the 21st of January?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Council, anything further? They have moved to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all.